Hello, everyone. I'm Christian Miranda, owner of Journey Retreats, and today I'm joined by Rippon, Australian women's water polo head coach, most recently from the 2024 Olympics silver medal. She's also a very dear friend of mine. We've lived together, trained together, worked together. There's not much that we haven't done together. I'm excited to chat with you. Also joined by Chloe Logarzo and Emily Gielnik, professional footballers, Matildas, and you're about to embark on a journey with future ballers, a pathway for young women in Australia to, with their football careers. We met on the amazing race. Really excited to chat with you girls today. Girls, welcome. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having
Thanks
us.
for having us. Yeah.
Stoked to be here.
It's good to have you here. 3 Olympians. We've got Beck, sport of water polo. You've been to 2 Olympics, won a bronze medal. Chloe and Em in football.
Couple Olympics, couple World Cups.
Beautiful. Beck, I guess we'll start with you just on the back of your most recent success. First of all, congratulations with everything that you achieved with the Stingers. But I guess what I'm curious to know is you look back at Australian water polo and we achieved great success in Sydney 2000 Olympics. For you personally, that was sort of the start of your career in open water polo in terms of just missing that squad. You were part of the train-on squad and everything. How has the sport grown and how has it changed in that time frame, 24 years? And what have you seen in terms of your impact both as a player but now as head coach of the Australian women's team?
Yeah, good question. Big question. But thank you, first of all. Yeah, I've just come back from Paris and we won a silver medal there, which I'm still wrapping my head around. It was an unbelievable performance by the team, and I'm so proud of the way that they did that and the way they performed. And I guess to see where the team's come to over the past 8 months, but also just where the water polo world has gone over the past 24 years. So you talk back to Sydney, and I was there watching as a young kid, or not even a young kid, but, like a 21-year-old. I hadn't made that team, and Australia won that with like a couple of seconds on the clock and really inspired every kid that was playing water polo to jump on board, winning the first gold medal that was ever on offer for women's water polo after men had been there for 100 years already. So I guess as a kid, that was so inspiring, and I made the team, and, that's what we were trying to live up to the whole time. And I know we've been inspired by them and motivated by them, but we haven't been able to get that same result. But the way I think about it is that the world has evolved as well. So we really went out there and set the tone as a country, and then we held a pretty successful period of time in women's water polo. We won another 2 medals between 2000 and 2012. And then, the rest of the world has really gone a lot more professional in their club environment, something we're not able to do or haven't been able to do over here. And so now players are heading to Europe to play so that they can have contracts or they can play professional water polo. They get to compete in the European League. I did a bit of that while I was playing, but it was at certain periods along the way, not full time, where I would just disappear for years on end. It was at strategic times within the Olympic cycle. We've got more players going to college now. So I suppose there are different pathways, but I think something that probably needs to develop in Australia is what is our elite performance pathway into the Stingers.
And I guess it's interesting that you touch on that when we've got you girls here and you look at the pathways that have been laid through women's football on the back of the success of the Matildas. Did you girls have to go through a similar sort of pathway in terms of travelling overseas, sourcing contracts overseas just to be able to make football a livelihood?
Yeah, I think we spoke a little bit off air about it, and we're going to touch on it here, but it sounds exactly where football used to be about 10 years ago. And it's interesting to know how far football's come in those last 10 years. And it starts with forging pathways. And that means, yes, going over to college or going over to a domestic team overseas and playing in that league, even if you're not getting paid and you're not doing that. It's the start of it. And then that encourages more people to be able to do that. And then once you get enough people to be able to do that, then the pathways become easier and it's more enjoyable, isn't it?
Yeah, so essentially 10, 12 years ago, the A-League was like the cream of the crop. Everyone wanted to play in the A-League. The season only went for 3 months and you were basically paying to play, right? So that's where women's football was a long time ago. And it got to a point where we got some really good coaches in as national team coaches, and they knew firsthand that the development, in order for the Matildas to progress and become better players, they needed to go abroad, which was really sad because a lot of the Australian homegrown players wanted to stay and play in Australia, but the level, there was only 12 games for the season. So if you lost a few, you weren't making finals. You were pretty much paying to play. You're out of pocket and you had to go overseas and either land a college contract, like a university, get a university degree and play in college, or you play for a European club giant. But there were so many rules in, I'll use the WSL, for example, in England. You have to have a certain amount of points. I'm not sure how many people know this, but you have to have played either over 75% of matches for the national team over a period of time.
Before you're eligible.
Before you're eligible. And that's why the leagues are so strong there. So we've both been fortunate enough to go and make these leagues. But that's where a lot of talent is being missed out on. But the bottom line is so many Australian players, and that's why 95% of the Matildas are overseas. And that's why the success of the back of this recent World Cup, that was an accumulation of back-to-back years in development from all of us playing abroad, hands down.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think do you see similarities between where football has grown to what you're now being able to achieve with the Stingers? And let me ask you this, is it something that back as a young woman in the grandstands watching in Sydney to then attending your own Olympic Games to now being in a coach role, would you have ever anticipated that it would have grown in the way that it has and you'd have the success that you've just achieved?
For the sport, I think I actually think that certain countries have done a really amazing job at growing the sport. So Spain has come from, being, when I was playing, outside the top 12 in the world or just inside the top 12 to now being best in the world. And they've been there. They've been up in the top 2 to 3 for the past 12 years. They've invested heavily at club level and at junior development level. They just won the European under-19s for the 3rd time straight. So they're really heavily investing in the sport, and you can see the success there. And they've got an amazing club competition, and players are, they're allowing up to 5 internationals to play for each team. So lots of people are going there. The league is really strong.
Is there money too?
And there's money, yeah. I mean, I don't know what the money's like. I don't get involved in any of that, and I'm not playing, but it's enough for the players, I suppose, to go there and want to be there. And players from other European countries are choosing to go there over their own leagues. So, there's a bit of movement around.
Because I think that's something that a lot of spectators are probably quite ignorant to, is when you look at the money aspect of women's sport and the fact that so much of it is still somewhat semi-professional, where a lot of women are having to have second jobs just to be able to fund their way to continue to participate in the sport that they excel at. There's a knock-on effect to the impact that has on your performance as well. When you look at fatigue, you look at management of injuries, you look at the ability to transfer all of your mental energy into that one pursuit. You don't have that when you're semi-professional, and you turn up at training in the morning, knock out a few hours with your squad, then you're going off to work. So your brain capacity isn't wholeheartedly directed to that one thing, which in the men's games, they can. And that's why I think that has a massive impact on performance.
I think the thing is, I find it funny is if you actually look at the money trail, you can see that investing in women's sport makes a massive impact. The Matildas are a prime example of it. The investment that's gone in the last 7 years has made the Matildas the way that they are. And I'm not saying paying us more. Yeah. I'm saying facilities, camps, the number of camps that we're playing, the amount of games that we're playing in a year to get the exposure to make us better. And then, of course, it's being able to invest in us. I know that a lot of athletes are starting to invest in looking after their bodies for longevity of their career, but women's sports has just slowly gotten into that. And I think now that you're seeing the slow form of how money's impacting us, and it's being successful with the Matildas.
It's like the CBA. I don't know if the collective bargaining agreement, every 4 years it gets reassessed. Yeah. So it was just something as simple as, which is crazy, but going from economy to a business class flight, it's chalk and cheese. So we have a 10-minute window, a 10-day window in international schedule. So if we've got to go and play in Europe against England, for example, we're traveling what feels like 2 days. We're recovering for what feels like 2 to 3 days. Then we're playing a game. We're having 2 days off and we're playing another game. And then we're coming back and jumping straight into our game. The injury rate and doing all of that in economy, I can't explain what it's done to players. We've had firsthand stats of players, touch wood, doing their ACLs on economy flights and doing 2 international games from flying from Australia to Europe or vice versa. So we've had a massive shift in our CBA. And I feel like when we were talking about the water polo, the Matildas has had that massive shift because you can see that the money that they put into it. So like the times that we spend before a tournament, it's 3 to 4 weeks, whereas we used to just come together a few days or a week before, go into a tournament, I would say potentially not unprepared, but what didn't feel like proper preparation because there's no investment, right? In terms of culture, in terms of preparation, look what the time, and you would understand what a coach needs to prepare their squad and, you know, instill all the values and the philosophy and get that cohesion building before a tournament. So crucial. And I think now, like, and to be fair, no one even, we used to get called the female Socceroos. No one was really watching the Matildas. And I think your sport now is going to have that shift of like, because who was really watching water polo before? Like that's how we felt 5-6 years ago. Who was coming to our Matildas game? If we got 5,000-10,000 there, we were crying. We were so happy. And now we're filling out 60, 70, 80,000 people in the stadium. And I'm hoping that water polo has that shift because it's that World Cup that did that for the Matildas and this silver medal that will hopefully do that for water polo. But investment.
It is the investment. It's the investment in everything. So for us, we have a full-time physiotherapist that now manages everything. So we're getting updates on, you know, telling them how's our injury, being in our domestic clubs. They're visiting us when we're overseas. They're more integrated into it. And that means that it's wholehearted. Like it's not just, oh, we come in for our 10 days and then we all go off and we're disconnected. It's about keeping us together so that we're all on the same page at the same time. And I know that would be so hard,
I
right?
agree. It's staff as well.
Yep.
It's not just players, but having access to staff who can commit fully to their role. So rather than having, you know, I've been the staff who's come in at a tournament and you're expected to help deliver a result when you haven't been involved in the planning or the preparation or, you know, to a limited extent, or rather than having physios, S&C who are managing players internationally, they know where they're at. We've got plans in place for every player so that when they come together, everyone knows where everyone's at and you know what your starting point is. But yeah, I agree. It's investment across everywhere. It's not being a successful team's not just picking the best players and hoping they play well.
Yeah.
Because that's, I think, underestimating what a team sport is.
Yeah.
There's plenty of talented people, but you can't actually have always the best players, best individual players all in the same team either.
Well, that was one of the interesting things that I've found with some of the media comments on your success. It was really nice to be able to see that you're finally getting recognised for the work that you do as a coach. But there's so much of that story. Like for me, it's no surprise at all to see the team achieve the success that they achieved under your leadership, particularly despite only being involved for 6 months.
Yep.
I know that you've been in the background and contributed a massive amount there, but knowing you how I do and knowing the different things that you've gone through throughout your life, it's no surprise at all. But none of that's been communicated at any point. And for me, I like to look at where you've come from, how that makes you who you are. If you look back on your own career, what were some of the most challenging things as a player, be it injury or different coaches that you had or different dynamics within certain teams that have shaped you to have that particular influence that were able to build that cohesion that you achieved with the Stingers this year?
I mean, we grew up swimming together, right? So we had an amazing culture at our swim club, which is not a team sport traditionally, but it felt like I was part of something, felt like I was part of a team, part of a family. And we did, whether we actually discussed it or not, there were real true values there. And I feel like that's what I grew up knowing. That's what it felt like to be part of a team. And I don't think that my experience in water polo has always had focus as heavily as we did on that. It's been about the physical, technical, tactical, which is really important. And when you have limited time, that's where all your energy goes. But I think the shift that I've seen is that for me, the players that I have talent. They want to work hard. They just need to all be aligned to something. I work with a group of unbelievably intelligent women, and I love that about them. I love how they will challenge you. I love how they are unique in their own way. And for some people, I think that that's a challenge because they don't all toe the line for everything. But, you know, it's not about that. It's about finding what's common to all of us, which is trying to achieve something amazing and putting all our direction towards that. And then that sets your values. So your vision that you have, it sets your values. the team come up with the values. They're the ones that have to live it and breathe it with us every day. So I involve them in the process. In fact, they drive the process, because me coming in and saying, you need to behave like this, you need to act like this, you need to want to achieve this, that's actually not how it works. And I've been part of teams where that's been led differently. And, we've had success as a team that I've played in. And we do that because we all, again, are aligned to what we wanted to do. But along the way, what I saw is that it can be done in a way that I believed was different. Or it is different, perhaps better, but for me, it's more suitable. It's actually, bringing the players in and helping them drive the culture, because they're the ones that have to step up and play and perform. And for someone to just be told, do it because I've said so, or do it because, they work hard. But what the shift has been we've spent a lot of time on being vulnerable. And a lot of people have told me along the way that to be tough, it just means to shut up and play, to just do what you're told, when actually I believe being tough is being vulnerable, being open, because that's where we really could get the good discussions going. That's where we really actually challenged the tough issues. And that's where we were successful, because we didn't go just suck it up and just, do what you're told. We actually went, let's break this down. Let's find out what makes you tick, what makes you tick, and actually bring that together and work really hard on all our weaknesses, and let's really embrace our strengths as a group. Through that, it allowed us to train better. It allowed us to, work more closely as a team. It allowed us to actually communicate in a more meaningful way, because being told that's just shit, that doesn't actually impact me positively in any way to perform better. It just tells me that was no good, but it doesn't tell me how to fix anything. So we just shifted language, we shifted an approach. But the team, I think, were more tough by being vulnerable. So that's probably the biggest.
Were they instantly receptive to that, or was it quite a foreign thing to try to introduce with a new group? Or not necessarily a new group, but for you being in that new role?
I think they were receptive, but I don't know that everyone realised how hard that would be. It took a while to break down a lot of barriers, but we invested in it and we committed to it. And so we worked on that I got the team. I took my role on in December, and our first camp was on the 6th of January. We had a World Championships 10 days after that. So we spent the 2 weeks of the World Champs playing water polo, but starting that. We had conversations in the middle of World Championships. We had meetings. We were working on our values and our vulnerabilities in the middle of the World Championships, because we knew that was going to make the difference towards the end. So it took a bit, and that was a really tough time, and it has been tough, but I wouldn't change it. And I think that that's something we'll continue to invest in.
Is that similar to what you girls have experienced as part of the Matildas squad?
I was going to say, I really resonate. Actually got a lot of respect for your coaching philosophy, because I would really respect that as a player.
Do you actually want to get the national team job?
What's the pay?
How's your football CV? But honestly, I'm a big believer in this, because a lot of the best football managers, they're actually just really good people managers. They're not. They have the technical geniuses who are like the assistant coaches and the mentors. But honestly, it takes a lot of work to find what makes a team tick. And I love that you've given the girls the opportunity to set their own standards. I really respect that, because that would really work for me.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, when you think about it, you're at the highest level, so you don't need to teach them to be professional athletes. You just need to give them a platform and the ability to be able to live into that. And I think we had that shift with one of our coaches, Ante, where we had coaches who would tell us, what to do, and you need to act like this and you need to act like that. And Ante came in and he gave us a different idea of like, hey, you guys are the professionals. If you want to mess around, like, you can do that. But I'm going to edge you guys to be the professionals you are. And we all stepped up to it. We all loved the idea that, hey, you're giving us the confidence to be who we actually are. And that worked for us really well.
I think he got the respect from us. And the best thing he ever said to me was, well, he said it to all us as a group. You see this training jersey you're wearing right here for the national team? This is earned. Every time you go to your club, you fold it up, you give it back. You work hard at your club. I have a look, and you earn the right to come back here. Like, I have so much respect for that. Whereas, unfortunately, that's where you get monotonous, and you start to get like your plateau because there's always just an expectation. You just expect it to be back there, no matter whether you're performing below par or subpar. Like, it's really a lot of time. Like, we'll use the Wayne Bennett example. Like, I don't know if you know much about Wayne Bennett, but I had
Have you read his book?
Hey, I haven't, but I had a mentor.
Awesome.
I had a fitness mentor, and he said he worked a lot with Wayne Bennett. He said, you know what, Wayne Bennett, he didn't know too much about, like, he wasn't the best coach, but man, he knew how to get around his players.
Yeah.
He knows when to throw the arm around, and that's what you need. Like, you need a good people manager to find out how these players tick. And like you said, everyone's got the common goal. All these players, we all know what it takes to win.
Yeah.
But is every single player in that team prepared to do
Yeah.
whatever
And
it
bought
takes
into
to
the same
win?
approach.
That's right.
And sometimes the hardest thing is that it's not you who's on the actual pitch or in the water, and you're playing a different role. But at the end of the day, you're all winning, and you all want the same goal, and you all want to live to the same thing. And sometimes that's just being the outside person. And when you get to a point where every single person knows their role or understands what their role takes, that's when you're going to be successful.
Yeah, we actually had a huge piece of work around what it is to be part of the squad, because I had to cut the squad immediately and then I had to cut it again really quickly. So we did discuss and work a lot on what it means to be just training, and then how we face it when we're not selected, how we turn up, how we front up, and we spent a lot of time on that. And that's where I believe that when we came to final selections for the Olympic team, it sucks, like it hurts, and people hate me. They called me the dream crusher to my face, the team in front of everybody. Oh, you're the dream.
Oh wow! But we had a different experience.
It's true, right? Like, you're there to support them achieving their dreams, but to some,
you've got
decision,
a tough job. You've got a certain amount of
but they
players,
respected the way it was done.
Yeah.
They don't have to agree with it, and but they respected the process and that we were honest and upfront about what it's going to take and why. But again, what does that mean when you are deselected, and how do you actually handle yourself in those moments, and as a team committed to that, so that when it's all, because when you go home, your parents, your family, your friends, they just want to make you feel better. So they'll talk shit about every single person and put down the whole team that's selected. And we went, that's actually not what we believe in. Yeah. So how do we shut that down? And just, again, it all came back to who do we want to present as a group. And there are rules, even in a team that's living by the culture and they're driving it, there's still rules in place. There's still times we need to pull people into line and say, hey, pull your head in. Same for me. Like, I need people to do that to me as well. But it's about having all of that set so that when people do step outside of it, it's an easy pull back in. When you don't have that, it's really hard to actually go, we're not aligning with our values, or we haven't talked about them, or we've mentioned them once, but
Yeah, one thing I did want to ask you, actually, because I'm really interested in this perspective, because for my career, and probably speak on behalf of Chloe as well, we've been in the mix a lot, and sometimes, we've been out of the mix, whether it's due to injury or someone's playing better than us, whatever it is, but we're big team players, and I'm proud of saying that. Like, we are big team players. We always put the team first, but obviously not every single player for you is a star. You obviously have those ones who maybe aren't as talented or aren't as good or are on the fringe. So how do you make them feel, because I think this is a big missed opportunity for coaches, not just talking from a football perspective, but in every single sporting code. How do you make them feel just as valued as the person who's out there starting at the start of the game?
I think it's just the way that we for me, it's probably just in how we communicate, how we train, how we talk about everything. It's not all around a player or all around a position or anything like that.
Even a result?
Or a result. We didn't talk results.
Are you quite transparent with every single player? Like, you'll have open conversations?
Yeah, I will. That's the hardest part of the role, is giving the bad news or telling, the players that they're not playing well or whatever it might be. But I think having the relationship with them to be able to do that is the most important part. I know from being a player, I've had plenty of those conversations, and if they're not meaningful, they just hurt you and they don't actually make you better. So I think a lot of it is just making it a meaningful conversation. I would rather be upfront and honest
than beat around the bush.
And, like early days, within my first week of having the team, I made some big decisions to cut players who had been in the squad for 10 years or so. But I wanted to have those conversations face to face rather than just cut them and not actually have the conversation with them. And although, again, that sucked and it was really hard, they said, I appreciate the honesty. I feel like I've been led on for a while. So that's one. There was another player who I had a vision for the Olympics, but that player wasn't performing and wasn't living the values out of the water. So I didn't select them for World Championships.
And you see,
and so then I had the conversation with her and her home coach to say, if this doesn't change, you won't be going to the Olympics. I really would like to be in a position to pick you, but right now it's not there. So having that, again, really hard kind of conversation set her up and the team up for better success. it's hard, but in the end, what I've realised is if you don't address it, it's going to come bigger later.
I think if you don't address that player in that moment, she then falls off the path and then doesn't get selected, and then it's a shit fight.
Yeah.
So the transparency to address it, and I think that's what's lacking definitely in the football game and probably in a lot of sports, because these players aren't performing or aren't plateauing, and then it's a shock, or it's a player with a reputable name that's going anyways above someone who's grafting. Yeah. And I think it's a problem in all sports.
I think the one thing is what I'm hearing is that like a lot of your performing time when you were playing has helped transfer over to when you turned into a coach. And for us, I feel like because our industry is still like heavily dominated by males, I feel like it's a tough time because coaches feel like, oh, I can't say it to a girl because they'll get upset, or it's gonna be like heartbreaking or something
around how you can speak to women or not speak to women, and even this generation's really soft, and I don't agree with that. I really don't agree with that. Everyone wants to go back to, oh, how come I can't say this to them anymore and I can't treat them like that? And I was overseas and talking to one of the European coaches, and he said to me, oh, over here in the country he was coaching in, they're really soft, and back in my country I could just slap them across the face and then go home and their parent would slap them across the face because they disappointed me. And I was like, I disagree fundamentally with that people are softer. I just think we've done the wrong thing in the past.
Well, we had this discussion the other day.
We haven't treated athletes or people well, and now that we can't treat them like that, or we shouldn't, we're calling them soft instead of saying, actually, we treated them really badly. Mm-hmm. There's so much abuse in sport, and not just by men, but you're hearing it every day. There's the physical abuse, the sexual abuse, but there's also emotional abuse that has been in the sport for so long, and we've just accepted it because maybe we got a result. But just because you didn't mean it was right. And that's the part I really have a problem with, is everyone saying, oh, we should be able to do this, should be able to do that. There's a time to be hard, and you can. We've had. My girls think, and they told me again to my face, that you're a psychopath when it comes to training. They train so hard, but they believe in it and there's purpose to it. It's not physical abuse just to tick a box and say we did that.
Yeah. There's purpose.
Yeah, there's purpose. And I'm not saying I'm perfect in any way, but I just think that you can work them hard. You can have the difficult conversations. You can have really critical conversations and be tough on people without being abusive. And I think there's a big spectrum
just
in there. We don't have to go one or the other.
Doing what it takes to win.
Well, this was how we first connected. The girls and I were on the Amazing Race TV show together, and we had a layover on the way over in Chile, I think, and we just got chatting about our respective backgrounds, and you girls went into a fair bit of detail about your own background with sport and the fact that you were missing the Olympics and World Cup due to injury and different situations with different coaches that you had. And I remember saying to you, I don't know if you remember, I said, you girls would absolutely love one of my best friends.
I remember.
Yeah?
Yep.
And well, he messaged me straight away, oh, you love this girl.
But there's so many similarities in some of the experiences, the negative experiences that you girls have had under different coaches, that I think whilst it's been a negative thing for you to go through as athletes, have genuinely shaped who you are as women and given you that adversity, given you that resilience, given you a whole heap of different characteristics that make you the strong women that you are today. When you look at what you girls are trying to form with Future Baller, you've got coaching clinics for up-and-coming junior women footballers. How much of that plays a role in the structure of the clinics and what you're trying to deliver versus the technical coaching aspects of football?
Future Baller was born out of the heartbreak of us missing the World Cup. I think Emily and I have gone through some unbelievable heartache, adversity through our careers individually, and then also we've done it together. And I think the thing for us is that we hope that young women now don't have to go through what we went through to figure out how to be strong and resilient and strong-minded and be aspiring towards goals. I hope that we can, through this clinic, help teach kids how to build the base to be able to have all of the network and support that they need. Unfortunately, there's too many stories of us about how, injury how to manage coaches,
setbacks,
everything.
But also giving these girls the tools that when things do go south, and we've experienced our fair share, like we've been in Matildas for over 10 years, but we've had our fair share of disappointment and things going south. How do you manage that when things do go south?
Because things are going to go south. It's not like it's all smooth sailing. Even the best of the best players, you know, you look at Sam Kerr and you think nothing in her life's ever gone wrong. But she's also had a hard way to where she is right now. And I think for us, it's like, how do we be able to prepare? I think that's the biggest thing. Prepare the girls for what's at hand.
And also it's about, you know, just what you touched on earlier. It wasn't necessarily, and I know I'm going to speak on behalf of you and me, but I'm speaking on behalf of me. It was not talent that got me here. I was not the best kid on the block. I was a hard worker. I wanted to beat my brother. I wanted to beat the boys. I wanted to be the best. And I didn't have much skill. I didn't have really good coaches or a pathway or development. I didn't have all the shiny things that the kids have today, the opportunity, which is crazy. And we want to highlight that opportunity to fast track them. But, you know, it was the hard work, the graft, and all the unseen hours that got me to where I am today, and same with Chloe. And it's about building this resilience for these kids because, you know, without the coaches that we've had, I'll use Alan Stadjuk as an example. We talked about him at the airport. He's influential for us because throughout my whole coaching, when I was coached by him, I remember I got called into every single camp except this one camp. I had a poor season and I was not scoring goals and I was just down in form. And he gave me the decency to call me and said, "You're just not in form right now. You're not coming to this next camp." I just went bawling my eyes out. And then it clicked to me, like, just I had this love and respect for him instantly. I was like, fair enough. I'm not playing well. I shouldn't be coming in. I don't deserve it. But most people were like, "I hate you. This is BS. Like, this is not fair." But there was a hard work. The only option for him was hard work. If he didn't see you grafting and putting in effort and wanting to be better every single day, like that made us better. He made us better he set a standard and a tone, and this is the level. If you don't reach the level, you're gone. And that was it. And you can be gone and you can work your way back in, but you're going to have to work hard to get back in. So yes, I got back in, but having that setback, and this is what we want to discuss at Future Baller, there's going to be a point where you do make it, but the hardest thing is not making it. The hardest thing is staying. And you would know that.
Yeah, Future Baller is the preparation into what it actually takes. And then whether the girls continue, we're going to use football as a segue to be able to allow us to give all of the experience we have. And then whether they go on and play football, it doesn't really matter to us. But we want them to have life lessons outside so they can handle all adversity that comes their way. And that's like in life, you know, when you put all your heart and your effort into something and you don't get out what you want it to, I think everyone would want to give up. But my view on it is that if you do all the 1%ers correct and you trust the process, I think you get so much more out of life. And that means just like if you're doing everything right, you might not reach your end goal that you set, but along the way you've put so much more in your backpack and you've learned so much about yourself, you've learned so much about other people, then other doors might open that you want to take instead of reaching that goal. And I think that's the most important part.
We chatted about this, Em. You came and attended one of the recent Journey retreats.
Yep.
And we spoke about the fact that when you're an athlete, your focus is quite narrow on just being the best that you can be in your sport, that it can often limit or negatively impact other areas of your life outside of that, be it relationships, other career opportunities, whatever it happens to be. You mentioned that you felt at sometimes like you were just blinded to these other opportunities, such as investing in a retreat or starting other business pathways. What are some of the negative aspects of being so narrow-minded on your sport and not having that support or structure around you to still be aware of everything else that goes on in life? And how much of that as a coach do you actually try to instill in your players?
I remember being in high school and then going to uni and not giving her stuff about anything else. You know, I'll pass everything, but I don't care. It's about water polo. And I suppose as you start to go and there's injury or there's, you know, deselection and things like that, or as for me, it was like, I'm going to start to have to pay some rent and start to look at other things as well. So I need to work. You start to open your vision and realize, well, if water polo is not going to do that, I'm going to need to have other things. So I think water polo in itself requires you to have to look outside of just your sport.
Do you think that's a positive? Like when we discuss this semi-professional aspect, I think in terms of developing yourself as a person, some of that hardship actually shapes who
Yeah.
you are, and there are positives associated to that.
I feel like there's a fine line though between whether it's too much and you're worrying about, the daily life of paying your bills and then it starts impacting your sport. There's a fine line between yes, it's good. It's whether you have the option to be able to want to do that or not, rather than having to depend on it to be able to do the sport that you want to actually be a part of.
Yeah, I think it's also like, especially when you get to more professional, it's having, or for us for Olympic cycles, having, I would kind of call it like a tapered approach, is where maybe early days you have a bit more balance in some of those, and towards the end it's really narrowed in. And it's giving you opportunity. Or, right now we've got some players have gone back overseas to compete. Some have come home because this is the year for them to knuckle down and knock off a year of university. Because some need to be here because they're doing medicine or like whatever, and they need to do some face-to-face hours. So how does that fit individually? So taking a bit of an individual approach to what each player needs. Yeah, when you're narrow visioned, all you think about is your sport and doing everything right. And I think there's value in doing that for time, for certain periods of time. But even then, I think one thing I liked to do, I went and played overseas, and sometimes I just chipped away at a little course on the side. Whether I ever used it or not, I can't even remember. Some of it, probably wouldn't even remember how to spell my name. But it was just done to give me something else. But then I have spent time overseas where I just played water polo as well. And that was a really nice opportunity to just like enjoy the lifestyle, enjoy just committing to training and playing and recovery and all of that goes with it. And I think some of it just depends on where you are at your life. Towards the end of your career, you're starting to look ahead and go, I want to just start making sure that when I finish, I'm not starting from scratch. So yeah, I just think it's a fine balance. So really, but I think, you look at male sport in particular, with the players that come up and all they do is play sport, there's often not much else, and that's where you can get into trouble.
You see the transition from professional sport to life after sport.
Injuries.
I've got a lot of
like
friends that have struggled with it, and whether it's addiction or just that general feeling of being lost, they really struggle with that transition.
I know one thing that was big for me was just making sure, and I remember being like, I am water polo, that's me, and then going, okay, I need to make sure I'm a person outside of this, and taking time to do that. And I got sick of being introduced at parties by my friends. This is Beck, the water polo player. And I'm thinking, I don't enjoy that anymore. Like it is a big part of my identity.
It's not who you are.
But it's not only who I am. Yeah. And so I guess that for me was a real moment where I went, I want to be something different to that, and just starting to work on things outside of there.
One of my good mates.
Sorry, I was going to say you would know this. We had this exact same breakthrough on The Amazing Race where we felt like Chloe and Emily, like the footballers, Matildas, like that is all good and well, but that's all we've ever been. Every event I go to, every baby shower, well, not that I've been, but I'm playing overseas, I miss out on everything. But anytime I come home or anytime I go to someone's house for dinner or anything, I am Emily the footballer, and I felt like the race was the first opportunity, external and outside of football, that we said yes to, which was like, it was leading into an Olympic period. It was a tough one to agree to, but it's the first time we wanted to identify ourselves, even though they called us, Emily and Chloe the Matildas on the race, but we were racing for ourselves essentially. And it felt like, to take the weight off the shoulders. Like we just wanted our own identity, and hopefully through this show, and it may or may not, but we want to showcase just like us as individuals, because as much as I love being associated as a footballer, it scares me because I am worried about these things post-retirement. Like, who am I after this? Like, I'm the footballer, and when I'm not playing football anymore, like, what am I? What am I going to do? Like, it does give me anxiety. But we talked about like the balance side of things. I do know in parts of my career, there's times where I've really honed in, like where I was like dialed in on my nutrition, my mental, everything, and I've had the worst season of my life. Yeah. So like I'm now, as time's gone on, I've kind of found the balance, although I've had some adversity with injuries lately, but I found the balance of being so honed in, and I'm still the first to training. I'm still the last to leave. I'm still the one that's recovering harder than anyone else because that's just in my DNA. But I found the balance of like looking externally in life after football, like with Christian and chats that we've had, but also just like actually having a balanced life, because when I've done that, I've played better football. So I'm
time
just like
with Tamika.
That's right.
You know what I mean? Like being able to dedicate time to your wife.
I've
And
done a long distance relationship for 9 years. So I've played over, like, I've been blessed that she's been able to say, you should go overseas. This is an opportunity of a lifetime. You need this because, like, in order to be, you know, a part of the Matildas, they were encouraging us, you must play overseas. So it was almost a non-negotiable for periods of time. So it was me packing a bag for 9 months. See you in 9 months. I'm not even home for 3 months. In the off season because we had national team commitments. So I'd be coming home for 2 weeks out of the year for almost 8, 9, 10 years. So like it takes a toll on you mentally for sure.
I think it's also like setting boundaries. It's the biggest thing as athletes. I don't think people really understand that when you're a professional athlete, it's not just a 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. It is 365 days a year, 24/7. Whatever you do on the field affects you off the field. Whatever you do off the field affects you on the field. You're playing almost 10 months of the year. You never have breaks. And setting boundaries with like friends, which is the hard one because you don't really have friends unless they're in the sport because people don't really understand what it's like to be a professional athlete and commit so much time. And then also setting boundaries with your family members because everyone's so excited that you're like, this is your career. But again, like you want to be Chloe Logarzo, the footballer, and that's what you do when you're at work. And then when you come home, you just want to be a normal person and finding the identity of like, okay, that's one part of my life. I have so much more. And then finding out how to weigh on those, especially when you're injured. Like when you're injured, it's the hardest thing because you're separated away from the team, but you're also surrounded by the team. And then you just feel so excluded. And that can be the really, really dark place.
What frustrates me the most with outside people, and they have an opinion on it a lot, is everyone always says to me, oh, footballer, what a dream job. Like you're living a life, see you at cafes and like, but this, you know, yes, I do love coffee. Yes. Yeah. But every single day when I get up at 6 a.m. and go to training, I'm like fighting for my life because if I don't train good that day, I'm not playing on Sunday. Do you know what I mean?
It's
like
the mental strain going to sleep at night being like, have I done enough? Am I going to do enough?
And like, have I eaten well tonight? Am I going to wake up feeling groggy or am I going to feel good? And, you know, am I going to have a good session? And if not, I'm going home, I'm thinking about that session like a psychopath. I need to deliver tomorrow because that's 3 days out from the match. And if I don't do well in training, I've got then 2 more days to like prove to the coach that I'm good enough to be starting on the weekend. Like that's the tough part about going overseas. When you go and play at a European club, and you would know that you're playing with every single player in that team is a national team player from all over the world. Like I played for Bayern Munich. We had 26 national team players. 18 players made the bench every weekend. Yeah. Like I was blessed and fortunate enough that I'm so crazy that I was determined to make that 18 every time, and I did. Yeah. But at the end of the day, you're 7, 8, 9, 10 people are missing out, and they play for their country and they're sitting in the grandstand like it's kill or be killed. Like this isn't like
living the dream, but
this isn't go to work and have a croissant and coffee and play some footy. Like every day is stress, every day is pressure, and there's different people don't associate with it as a real job, but it's mental and physical and emotional drainage every single day.
Most of the people who think like that actually have no clue. They're the ones who every 4 years come around and tell you how to do your job.
Yeah. The keyboard warriors. They're good at that. They're good at that timing, aren't they?
They're really great.
Especially for women's football, like women's sport in general. It's like you go overseas and you play and everyone's like, you're so lucky. But then no one realizes that you leave the comfort of your own space, all of your family, all of your friends to go play overseas. You have no support while you're there, and then it's just like, here you go, you're living the dream, and you're like, okay, women's sport don't have the same resources. We can't relocate our whole entire families to have all of this. We just don't have it.
The best thing that our coach said to us, Alan Stajic, and like when people score tapping goals, people go, you're so lucky the job you have. Oh, you're so lucky you scored the goal. He always used to say, it's not luck, you make your own luck.
Yeah. Like, no one's seen the 5,000 times you've done that in training.
Yeah. I'd miss that from in front. So I don't
train it. I was going to say the 5,000 misses. The 5,000 misses that leads to that, you know.
But all athletes know you don't get lucky. You make your own luck. Yeah. You're in that position because you put yourself in that position 10,000 times.
And no one sees it. Oh, they might see that, okay, you're training, but how many times have you done it? How many times have you gone through that same thing? To be lucky.
And everything that they see are the highlights, right? So everyone's seeing when you do score the goal or, when your team wins, and not the hours and hours of grind. They're not sitting in on the meetings, the hard ones where you're crying, where you're being told you're not playing or you're injured and you're out, and no one's a part of those. So they don't actually realise what it takes.
Mm-hmm. One of my good mates, Andrew Lauderstein, he won bronze in the men's 100 butterfly at the Beijing Olympics to Michael Phelps. And he reflects now, so that was, what's that, 10, 16 years ago. He reflects now and says, whilst he probably wouldn't have beaten Phelps, he's glad that he never won an Olympic gold medal. And what he means by that, and we've discussed this a fair bit, is you look at the athletes that have hit the absolute pinnacle, and life after sport hasn't always been so kind to them. Whereas what he reflects on is the fact that he's been able to now forge a career with multiple companies. He's got a few swim schools. He's got a swimwear company. The adversity that he faced in just his pursuit of being the best that he could be, and he happened to be third at the Olympics, has helped him grow as a person post-career. And I think a lot of people, particularly spectators, forget that sport is only a small period of your life. Whilst it's your identity through that time frame, it's not your whole life. And for you, even transitioning from player to coach, it's a completely different chapter of your life.
Totally different.
Whilst you're involved in the same sport, you're in the same circles, it requires a different mindset. It requires a different approach. It requires that growth and development as a person. And that's where, when I sit here with you three women, I'm proud to be able to say that you're all friends of mine, because the values that you have and the things that have allowed us to connect as people are on the back of everything that you've achieved as an athlete, but more importantly, who you are individually. So thank you very much for taking the time to chat with me today. We might finish with one little thing. Girls, in terms of what's about to air next week, Monday, September 9, The Amazing Race airs.
Yeah.
What's the one most cringeworthy moment that you're hoping not to see?
Oh, I can tell you.
I can tell you, I can say Chloe's.
Well, firstly, for all those who are watching, tune in, get the popcorn, because it's going to be a wild ride. The cringeworthy, the cringeworthy moment for me was the Inca Trail with the sacks on the back.
You can't talk about any of this.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we don't air it.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll wait.
Yeah.
It'll come out later.
Yeah.
Imagine.
And, and honestly, actually, I can
This
say
isn't
this.
live. It's not live.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm just like, imagine we just like,
sorry.
yeah.
I can say this.
She doesn't even have a filter.
I hope the blow up that Chloe and I had made it, because that's real life shit. Like, this is what we do. Like, this is
On
the friendship.
show, I'll tell you one situation. So we're in a rural part of Argentina, and we'd had to drive about an hour and a half to the next clue. And you either had to choose between eating an Argentinian dish, you didn't know what it was, or milking a goat for 2 liters of goat's milk. And I'll tell this whole story, actually.
Oh, I can't wait to hear where this is going to go.
So Thorpe and I are driving there. We'd picked to eat the Argentinian dish. And as we got there, it said detour full, which forced us to go into the thing. Now, later you learn that from a production perspective, they probably do that shit on purpose, and it forces you to go a particular way.
An entree for you boys.
Anyway, so we've gone over and we've got to milk this goat, and I've walked into this farm and grabbed this goat by the horn. I'm walking all over goat shit, drag this goat out, tie him up to the fence, said to Thorpe, off you go, mate. Do your best. And he starts milking. I'm like, mate, you're real good at that technique. How'd you get so good at that? It's like, fuck off, Christian. You have a go. So I start having a go, and the goat just collapses on its stomach.
The side milk.
And so then I've had to grab its leg and get it on the side and just get this milk into this bucket.
While it's on its side.
By the way, we're watching this because we're milking. She's got the teats down packed. Like, if you've ever seen it, honestly, you'd think she owns 20 goats at home. Okay, she's just milking this, like just milking these goats. And he's over there milking this one from the side. I am just holding the goat, carking it. Like, I'm dying.
Anyway, we finished this and we realised that we've got to drive to the next location. But at that point in time, you learn that we were actually supposed to pick up the car with a specific number plate for insurance purposes that none of us did it. We've all just jumped in random cars. And I've seen Chloe just running around this paddock, stressing out like, where's the fucking car? Where's the car? Where's the keys?
When I mean legging it, like,
and by the way, I've had a calf tear, so I'm not meant to be running at this point, and we're not allowed to be more than 6 meters apart. And she is launching it with like the devil in her eyes.
Okay, so it's like, it just gave me flashbacks of when I was 12 years old running cross country, because it was like literally in the middle of the bush, and there was like cobbles everywhere, and I'm just running, sprinting towards getting all of this, and
full
I'm just
competitor mode.
I'm like,
You were
fuck
yelling
is it?
at
'Cause I was
Steph and
No, no, no,
Havana
no.
saying, "Give me your keys."
No, you know, like, okay, so like in production, there's a lot that goes on that's
Yeah.
just like,
It's
how the
TV.
fuck does a key go missing? Like, there's all the competitors there. How does one key go missing? Tell me.
I don't think it'll air because
It's not going to air.
Yeah,
It's
it'll
not going to air. They
it'll
already told
reflect
us.
poorly on the
Yeah.
show.
Yeah.
Oh, God damn it.
But
I
that's
was
just a
psyched.
Not
small-
Chloe's outburst.
Oh, yeah. That's just a small snippet of like the shit we
Excellent.
were going through. Yeah.
Next
Yeah,
time
it
I
was
want to
good
do it
fun.
with you.
I've never watched the show.
Yeah.
Oh,
This will be
I
my
hadn't
first.
watched it much either.
no, the Inca
My brother
Trail,
loves
I
it,
can't-
so I'm
I
keen.
can't.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna watch it.
Honestly, yeah.
That'll be
The
good.
most
Not maths.
cringeworthy thing is going to be the Inca Trail when I'm like, get in a dark place.
Our rules were different. I thought we weren't allowed to touch anything, so we're here like Jesus.
You weren't. You weren't
Yeah,
allowed.
you weren't allowed
you
to hold it.
Well, Cyrell was just holding it like an onion pack.
Yeah.
All right, she just here and she's like, like crying, poor thing.
Girls, thanks for taking the time to join me. We've been quite reflective in everything that we've discussed so far. If you were to reflect back on the young girl on the pitch doing the extras, kicking the ball around or up and down the pool or practicing their shots in polo, what's one bit of advice that you'd share to them, both as an athlete but also as a young woman, as they go on through their lives?
I think the main thing for me would be if this is what you want, if this is something you really, really want, go and chase it. Don't. I think there's just too many people saying, well, that's not there for us or that's not set up for us. And yeah, there's work to be done in that space, but you want something, if there's a gap in your game, a gap in your program, go and find a way to fix it. Go down the pool and do extra laps. Join a swim squad. Join the local gym and get some help with your gym program if they're not part of it. Go and make sure that you're not missing out on the things that perhaps you don't have early in your pathway, because no one's going to just do it for you. And I think we've talked about it a bit. It's not all pretty. So sometimes you just got to find your own way. If you want it enough, go chase it, but also enjoy the ride, because I think sometimes you get so focused on something that 13 players every 4 years go to the Olympic Games. It's probably really unlikely to be you, but the reality is if that's what you want, you've got to go chase it.
Yeah. Chloe?
I think that, again, if you love something that you do, there's so many pathways out there now. So if I was 12 years old again, imagining if I am not good enough to make the Matildas, that there's so many things that you can still do. Go overseas and play overseas and have fun, because you can still be a professional athlete, and you can go over and experience some of the best things about my career is that I've lived in different countries and I've had cultural experiences, and that's just not shaped me as a player, but as a person leading me outside of my footballing life, and it's what helped shape me. So I would encourage everyone to continue to look at those pathways.
What about you, Em?
Yeah, for me, it's a big one. I could go in so many directions here, but a little bit similar to Beck. I hear so many kids, they kind of want it. Like, do you kind of want it or do you really want it? And I think the biggest thing is just deciding. You either want it really bad or you just kind of want it. And I think I knew I wanted it really bad. And I think that's what sets me apart has set me apart as a kid. I think if I could give advice to all these young kids, it's simple. Be the first there, be the last to leave, and work harder than everyone else around you. Because when I think about all these young girls that are training 2-3 nights a week, that was me. But I was training that morning and that night, that next morning and that night, in the middle of my lunch break at school, when I got home from school. And I loved it, but I decided that I wanted it so bad. So I want these young girls to dream big, believe in themselves, but set the bar high and reach those standards.
They're lucky to have you girls to look up to. Thank you again for your time, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.